Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Sounds like I'm breaking something. I think we're back on the run, at least for listening on us. Gotta do things for everything. Log into this, need codes for that, need codes for this. I mean, I'm not mad at security, but it does start to seem like you got a lot of shit going on. Man, it does seem to say that. And then it sent me 3 notifications that I did it. Like, yeah, I just said it was me. Trying to get the audio levels right. That doesn't sound good at all. I can barely hear me. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I wish I could figure out how to tell the difference. Because it's with my audio levels and your audio levels, there could be all kinds of crazy wonkies. Could be all kinds of crazy wonkies. So testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, looks like this is what we're going to do. We're going to go with it today. So, I have good news or bad news, depending on how you feel about how I look. Because I don't have a camera, is the deal with that. My camera is doing something wonky. I don't know why it's being the way it is, but very clearly it is doing some kind of wonkiness. The camera is doing something. So, hello, welcome in. My name's Sean. I'll be your narrator for this evening, I'll say. My name's Sean. I'm Firefly 2018. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow if you haven't been here before. We talk about news. We talk about things. We're currently looking at the PBS NewsHour because they were rated #1 most trustworthy. But I often start with Google News, and we work our way back. I usually do COVID as a whole separate section. The Uvalde school district situation. I don't know how I feel about that in the first place because it's not really our business, I guess. Like, if this guy was an incompetent police chief, I'm sure there's many incompetent police chiefs across the country. Like, Uvalde, Texas, it's probably had, like, the biggest crime it ever has was, like, you know, have you ever seen Andy Mayberry? That's probably what Uvalde, Texas looked like before. So I'm not sure I really care about that. This is basically a gun control deployment situation. The gas tax holiday, 18 cents a gallon. That's all we'd get out of that from the federal situation. And the biggest deal is that gas stations don't have to reflect that. Like, it just absorb that 18 cents themselves, and it wouldn't lower the price of gasoline at all. And obviously, if we keep paying the $5 a gallon for it, they're going to keep charging us $5 a gallon for it. So we all know my solution to the gas situation is to get away from it. They're not ever going to lower the price. They're just going to keep gouging you for it. So screw them all and get something electric. Afghanistan earthquake kills at least 1,000 people. The toll is expected to rise. From what I understand, it's because that hit very late at night, and they don't have the structural integrity that we do here in the United States. So lots of people died because they don't have, like, the building codes and things that we have here in the United States. And then everybody was at home. Like, I went to a tornado in Coode a couple years ago, well, a couple months ago, and most of the people were out at work, so their homes were destroyed, but the people, the population loss was not that much. So that's always good. But this, if it's like an earthquake in the middle of the night, like buildings collapse, you wake up in the middle of the night, it's great and squished. That's, you know, it's hard to deal with that. House GOP scorns bipartisan Senate bills. That's not unusual. I'm not sure I even care about that either. Like, the gun control issue seems like a moot point when the world's on fire, but whatevs. Second pandemic. This is such a bait. This is such 100% a bait. I clicked on this item, and it takes you directly to Fox News. And then, if, like anything else, is just him giving a vaccine speech. This right here is a specific example of Fox News being ridiculous. Because he said, "Here we go again." He's talking about the vaccine mandates. Like, if you watch the whole thing, he says that about, "I can't believe we're still talking about getting people vaccinated." That's what I mean by that. We're supposed to have some guests today. I believe Carrie said she was going to be here, and Sharon said she was going to be here, and opened it, and then left me on red. Did you fall back asleep? Too funny, too funny. Anyway, so we're talking about this being propaganda. Be aware. Fox News is usually propaganda, and then the next one down is an NBC News article, so that's the whole situation as well. The main insurance agency faces online backlash after Juneteenth racist sign. I don't think that should be national news either. Like, if somebody was racist and put up a racist sign, somebody should sue them for it, privately, public, and move on. That's how I feel about that. Uvalde School District is another situation. Biden calls for 3 months suspension of the gas tax. Why is it? Like, oh, this is like headlines, and then, oh, U.S., it's all the same shit. The January 6th committee, that's a whole situation. Like, I don't know if you've seen them talk about how these people that were just working the election polls were getting threats and such. And I worked the election polls. I don't know if anybody's been here long enough to remember that. But I worked the election polls, and it's not an easy job. You don't get paid a whole lot for it. You're basically volunteering your time. You're literally there from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. that day, and people are awful. Just people are awful. South Dakota Attorney General impeached and removed from office. I didn't actually catch that. After hitting and killing a pedestrian. Ooh. This photo shows the car that South Dakota Attorney General John Ravensburg was driving on September 12, 2020 when he struck and killed a pedestrian. Secretary of Public Safety Craig Price on Monday that Ravensburg was distracted before he drove into the highway shoulder and struck and killed a 55-year-old Joe Bover. Oh, poor guy. And this was in September 12th of 2020. This is just now. But he's still in office for 2 years. Again, why would a man be walking down the road? Ravensburg's head, North Dakota investigators. I believe I'm on the road. Wham! My life changes. The crash reconstructed found that Ravensburg had all 4 tires on the shoulder of the road when he struck Beaver. Wow, so he like rolled over that guy on the road. Investigators told Ravensburg that Boover's body ended up laying only a couple feet from the edge of the road. A flashlight Bouvier carried was still on. Even when investigators found it later, they said Ravensburg repeated many times that he had never saw the body that night. I mean, that whole situation sounds sketchy, but I guess it's a good thing he's out of office. Bye. More about the earthquake. Mountains. This one was pretty serious. So, like, you know that we have sanctions all over Russia, and Lithuania is a country that borders Russia, and there's certainly situations that warrant some attention here, but it's neither here nor there. What the deal is with this is that they're allowed to send goods like food and things for the general populace, but Lithuania is stopping trains from doing that because they're not supposed to be having any kind of train commerce with them. So there's a conflict about the types of sanctions that we're doing, but right now they're being supported by NATO and the European alliance. So that could be scary. The situation with the grain terminals and the war, like they're losing the Donbass region very, very slowly. They've talked about this being 100 people a day have died, so it's pretty rough. Russia, and they're also hitting like the food infrastructure, which is crazy. Like, I'm not sure it's gonna matter that much in the United States. I'm sure we don't import that much wheat here in the United States, but places like Africa, I understand, are being hit quite bad because of this Russian attacking the food. NPR called it Russia using food as a weapon in warfare. It's like they're basically encouraging Ukraine to submit just so they can go back to production for weeks so people don't starve. Like, what's your choices? Freedom or letting people starve? It's rough. It's rough. We talked about the Fed rate last week. They're gonna do it again, I bet. Elizabeth Warren's talking about driving it off a cliff. I've made that analogy many times in my category, so be aware that economic times are hard to come. Juuls are finally being pulled from the U.S. stores by the FDA. That's great news for anybody who hasn't been smoking one of these for years. Excuse me. Tesla losing billions of dollars today. I have that article up because I read that one. They're not going to go bankrupt or anything. They can not go bankrupt. That was a whole big deal. They're struggling as far as a company goes because of the China lockdowns, as we all knew they would. As we all knew the whole world would, but hopefully they'll get that microchip factory working up in Ohio ASAP. So that's definitely a thing that's happening. American Airlines, that's a huge deal. Like, the pilot shortage is becoming pretty real. The flight attendant shortage is becoming pretty real. It's nobody wants to do that because I'm sure you get COVID every day working on a plane like this. Like, and I feel like people didn't realize that they were frontline workers when they were flight attendants. Like, they just didn't realize how many people they could be dealing with that are sick and traveling from one country to another, because a lot of people travel to multiple places. Like, if you are a person who travels for business, you go all over places. But you spend a lot of time in an airplane. I don't even know what this means because I'm not an Apple person. So if you're an Apple person and this scares you, you should just switch to Android. It's fine. This one is terrifying. The Amazon Alexa mimicking the voice of a deceased relative is terrifying. I can't believe. Can you imagine how traumatic that would be if Alexa did that without your permission? And you're like, "Oh, hey, Dad, what's this?" And then suddenly Alexa answers in your dad's voice. Oh God, that would break me. I'd be like, "What the fuck?" That would Epic Stores, now you get to rate your shit. That's not news. Seems to have been there for 100 years. IKEA's new tool is pretty cool, where you can delete your furniture and put what you want to buy in it, like a test view. That's fairly neat. Baz Luhrmann's Evil is distorting Jumble. I'm not watching it because Baz Luhrmann should probably be dead by now. I can't believe he's still alive. Actually, I'm just going to skip all the entertainment news because I really feel like that's entertainment in general. Like, I can't believe Bill Cosby's situation is still being a thing. Sports news, I don't care about that either. If you want to watch, maybe the dog show even, but not really. Not really. Science you get into. The 5 planets are lining up are not even what that article's about, to be fair, now that I've... Five planet line. I thought it was something to do with the telescope. Pretty sure this was already the article I watched earlier.
NASA is getting its James Webb Space Telescope ready to provide some answers about other planets in the far reaches of our Milky Way galaxy. This summer, scientists will be examining ground surfaces and atmospheres of these planets and their relationship to the sun in their own solar systems. They are called super Earths because of their size and because they are solid planets rather than gas, but that might be where the similarities actually end. Joining me now with more is assistant astronomer at the Space Telescope Science Institute, Nestor Espinosa. Nestor, thank you for being here. It's all really exciting, the possibilities that this new telescope has in store for us. So tell us, what are scientists most hoping to learn from examining these other planets?
Yeah, no, it's an honor to be here.
Again, that's what I thought. This was the wrong...
We really are just scratching the surface so far. We've discovered...
Wrong article, because it says nothing about the 5 planets lining up. Space.com is always a good one, but they don't usually have videos. A rare parade of planets is coming into better view in the second half of June, and even the moon will join the show. The current early evening sky is completely devoid of any 5 bright planets you can see with the naked eye: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. You have to wait until the second half of the night to see them, and then they'll slowly come into view one by one just before sunrise. All 5 will be stretched out across the southern and eastern sky. We know what day this is? It's happening right now. I guess it means now. Certainly, it is not unusual to see 2 or 3 bright planets in a single glance, but to have 5 in a view simultaneously is something quite special. This week's alignment will be quite tight, with 5 worlds appearing and stretch across an arc only about halfway across the sky from east to northeast, almost due south, roughly about a half hour before sunrise.
Planetary breakup, prime viewing for a well-known star cluster, and the constellation Lyra. The gathering of 4 naked-eye planets we've been enjoying in the morning sky for the past few months, including several close conjunctions, is beginning to break up. Over the next few months, Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus will appear increasingly spread out across the morning sky, so much so that Venus and Saturn will make their exits as morning objects for most observers by
Neat.
September. Look for this increasingly spaced-out planetary procession in June, and note that the crescent moon jumps into the lineup on the morning of the 23rd. June is an
So that's
excellent
like
time
staying
to
up late
observe one of
tonight.
the best-known globular star clusters, M13, also known as the Hercules cluster. Globular clusters are spherical collections of stars tightly packed together in their centers. M13 itself contains several 100,000 stars. Globular clusters are also extremely old. The stars in M13 are thought to be around 12 billion years old, which is approaching the age of the universe itself. Our home galaxy, the Milky Way, is known to have about 150 globular clusters. They orbit outside the galaxy's disk, traveling tens of thousands of light years above and below its spiral arms and most of its stars. Now, the Hercules cluster is best observed with a telescope, and larger telescopes will allow you to see more of the cluster's stars. But you can also find it with a pair of binoculars, where it'll look like a hazy little spot.
Cool. Hey, look, nightsky.jpl.nasa.gov.
Find M13 in the constellation Hercules, which is high in the east in the first couple of hours after dark in June. First, look for the bright stars Vega and Arcturus. Then find the 4 stars that comprise the keystone, which is the pattern making up the central part of Hercules. You'll find M13 about a third of the way between the 2 stars on the western or leading side of the keystone.
Isn't that amazing how
So check out
vast
the great
space is?
globular cluster in Hercules, M13, in June, and find yourself staring at an ancient gathering of stars that soars high above the Milky Way. Finally, in June, a quick introduction to one of the smaller constellations that's home to one of the brightest stars. That's the constellation Lyra. It represents a lyre, or harp, played by the musician Orpheus in Greek mythology. In Arab cultures, as well as ancient Egypt and India, Lyra was seen as an eagle. And the Inca of South America saw it as a llama.
Okay.
Find Lyra
An
by
eagle
looking
or a
for
llama
Vega,
or a
which
dude?
is the westernmost
Alright,
of the 3
fair
bright
enough, fair enough.
stars in the summer triangle. In the northern hemisphere, you'll find it halfway up the eastern sky in the first couple of hours after dark in June. Vega is by far the brightest star in Lyra. It's the 5th brightest star in the sky and the 2nd brightest in the northern hemisphere after Sirius. A pair of binoculars will help you see the other stars in Lyra, which form a sort of parallelogram hanging beneath it. It's sometimes described as looking a bit like a diamond ring, with Vega as the diamond. And that's not the only ring in Lyra. It's also home to the famous Ring Nebula, where a
Wow.
star has blown off most of its outer layers, leaving behind a remnant star known as a white dwarf.
I feel like that
So
looks like a
let the
portal
bright star
to something
Vega
amazing.
lead you to Lyra, the harp constellation in the June sky. And if you see it as an eagle or a diamond ring or a llama, well, that's perfectly okay too. Here are the phases of the moon for June.
There you go.
Stay
there's
up to
your-
date with all of NASA's missions to
Since we're
explore the
in.
solar system and beyond at nasa.gov.
Speaking of missions to NASA, I believe we have another, this Artemis. Did you know that NASA is trying to build a colony on the moon? Let's hear more.
We are going. The history of this agency is marked with broken barriers, once viewed as impossible, with science fiction turned reality, with innovations that have spun industries all their own, and with demonstrations of peace for all humankind.
We soar in the skies of our home planet. We maintain a human presence just outside of gravity, and we touch points all across the solar system and beyond. We're going back to the moon, and this is why.
You can tell he's from the south.
treasure
We're going
trove of
back to the
science.
moon.
It holds opportunities for us to make discoveries about our home planet, about our sun,
And about our solar system.
The wealth of knowledge to be gleaned from the moon will inspire a new generation of thought and action.
Without fail, every major program and mission NASA has invested in has led to technologies and capabilities that have shaped our culture.
The breakthroughs of the Artemis era will define our generation and the generations to follow.
The tens of thousands of jobs associated with propelling us to the moon today are just the beginning of a lunar economy that will see hundreds of thousands of new jobs develop around the world.
This is not an ambition of one entity or one country. The exploration of the moon is a shared effort.
Woven together by a desire for the greater good.
Why the moon? Because the missions of tomorrow will be sparked by the accomplishments of the Artemis generation today.
because
The Artemis
ambition to go
generation.
has already begun.
And because Mars is calling. We need to learn what it takes to establish a community on another cosmic shore. So let's camp close before pushing out.
I definitely said that myself, that
And
it seems
so,
silly to be
we go
planning to
the
go straight
moon
to
now,
Mars.
Not as a series
When we
of
can't,
isolated missions,
moon would be just as easy to, you know what I'm saying?
but to build a community on and around the moon capable of proving how to live on
And the moon is
other
closer,
worlds.
like it's a 3-day journey instead of a 3-month journey.
We'll use the lessons from more than 50 years of peaceful exploration to send a new generation to the lunar surface to stay.
We will anchor our efforts on the lunar South Pole to establish the Artemis Base Camp,
positioning us for long-term science and exploration of the lunar surface.
We will prove what it takes to assemble a complex ship in deep space.
That'll be a human accomplishment.
Descending down to and returning from a distant surface.
We will learn how humans can survive and thrive in a partial gravity environment.
With improved spacesuit designs, mobile habitats, and with reconnaissance robots pre-positioning and relocating supplies.
We will learn how to utilize the resources we find on these other worlds, starting with finding water ice and purifying it to drinkable water.
And refining that into hydrogen for fuel and oxygen.
Wow. This makes me want to play Mission to Mars. I might play that once we're done.
On the surface of the moon, capable of supporting a growing community of efforts.
And we will expand the logistics supply chain to enable commercial and international partners
To resupply and refuel deep space outposts.
None of this is simple or easy, but nothing in our history ever has been.
The Eagle has landed. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
This kind of continuous lunar presence is a natural
That was probably a
extension
thing from
of
the
all that
Apollo
we've
13.
learned in low Earth orbit.
I'm sure being an astronaut
And what we
makes
will
you a
accomplish
certain
there
kind of person.
will ensure the monumental missions to Mars are within reach. As we ready the launch of the first Artemis mission, and as commercial companies ready their lunar landers for the first private payload deliveries, we have already begun to take the next step.
That's I missed that the first time. The first private payload deliveries. I don't know about that, but I didn't know that was. I'm glad they're trying to do that, but that's scary. Let's commercialize the moon. Great. Later, close. This one's talking about the giant sunspot. The size of three Earths is facing us right now. This, I don't know if you've seen the Don't Look Up yet, but this is one of those things that I feel like if the sunspot were to be ready to obliterate us, they would probably not tell us. But it's a fast-growing sunspot, double in size in 24 hours, that produces medium-class flares. They didn't really like it's. I don't. They're not saying to panic. I'm not saying to panic. I don't really know what this is about. And if it's not like, if there was a solar flare coming, it's not like you could do much about the planet about to be irradiated. So good luck with that. At least to be quick. That'd be a quick way to go. You'd be like, "Oh, it's hot." Ah! That's probably about it. Yesterday, that was yesterday. That looks pretty gross. Look at that. Look at the spot. Look, that's huge. Should the Sunsot blast out coronal mass ejection, or CMR, of charged particles that faces our planet, it's possible those particles will interact with our magnetic field and create colorful lights in our atmosphere known as auroras. However, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Space Weather Prediction Center, which monitors solar flares and other outbursts, has not issued any current aurora alerts for Earth. The Sun has been particularly active this spring, sending out many M-class and X-class, the strongest class, flares as activity grows on the regular 11-year cycle of sunspots. Typically, CME, coronal mass ejections, are harmless, perhaps producing brief radio blackouts with the colorful auroras. On rare occasions, CMEs can disturb essential infrastructure like satellites or power lines, however. That's why both NASA and NOAA monitor the sun all the time. Additionally, NASA Parker's Solar Probe mission is flying very close to the sun periodically to learn more about the origin of sunspots and to better understand the space weather the sun creates. Well, how interesting. Let's hope we don't all get obliterated by some sunspots. That's another reason why I advocate for us to get off the planet a great deal. We could do very little about a sudden sunspot of rejection. Like, it would be tragic to see the human race die out because we didn't get off the planet quick enough. That would be tragic. Yeah, this was the one about Amazon. I'm not sure if there's a video. Sometimes the videos are just as sketchy.
We will try to show the problems that arise in getting a computer to understand speech.
At any given time, most of us are within earshot of a virtual assistant. They're in our pockets, our houses, our cars.
Okay, opening your garage door.
Whether you're using Siri to remind you of an appointment or asking Alexa to play a song for you, interacting with these non-human assistants has become normal.
Wow, I don't care about Alexa.
Google. She's a great assistant.
Siri came to the iPhone in 2011, but the underlying technologies are actually older than you might think.
The first machine capable of synthesizing speech was created by Bell Labs 80 years ago in 1939.
Who saw you? She saw me. Whom did she see? She saw me.
In 1952, Bell Labs invented a machine that could understand the spoken numbers 0 through 9. 2 years later, in 1954, IBM, in collaboration with linguists at Georgetown, were able to automatically translate 60 Russian sentences into English. In 1962, IBM created the shoebox, which could understand 16 spoken words.
6, 7.
By 1976, Carnegie Mellon increased that number to over 1,000.
Tell me all about China.
And by the mid-1980s, machines could understand tens of thousands of spoken words.
This system can be used.
I talk, and my words appear on the computer screen.
Since then, scientists have started combining these processes with artificial intelligence. A field that itself has been around since the 1950s.
As a result, we now have things like Alexa, Cortana, Siri, and the Google Assistant that we can talk to, and increasingly, they're able to understand us. So let's take a closer look at how computer science has made these things possible,
and why some assistants are smarter than others.
Sure, I'll take the fall for this one.
That's something I don't know.
Artificial intelligence is a big reason computer
thing.
scientists have been able to make assistants easier to use. But there could be a difference between
because
what
Amazon,
you might think.
they're scary in general. The American Airlines is just stopping in Iowa, but I think that's a symptom of a bigger situation, because they proactively reach out to customers to schedule after this date for alternative arrangements. They're just closing off an airport. It's not that serious, but there's been all kinds of flights and delays and such. So for those of you who are coming up on trips and haven't booked your plane tickets yet, you should probably do that. InSight, the Mars rover that we've had up there for years, has just been reconfigured to use the seismometer a little bit longer, because they sent some signals that would change the way its power is used, and that's going to be a thing. I hope they get some good information off of that, because we have littered the surface of Mars with little robots. If anybody else beats us to it, they're going to be like, well, who's been leaving all this trash up on Mars? Who this? Like, why are they sending this? Trash everywhere. Have you seen the new thing where bouncing on one leg for 10 seconds may predict the likelihood of how well you are living? So everybody get up right now and see if you can, how long you can stand on one foot. It doesn't say which foot. I personally think that my right foot is much stronger, so I'm going to try that first. All right, I'm standing on one foot. You guys have a timer on the screen, so you can totally tell how long that I've been standing on one foot for. I guess I can see it from here too. But they say that you're twice as likely to die in the next decade if you are currently unable to balance on one foot for at least 10 seconds, according to a new study. Conversely, the study suggests that your ability to balance from one foot points to a longer life expectancy. The peer-reviewed study conducted by Brazilian researchers published Tuesday in the British Journal of Sports Medicine determined that the person's balance ability can be preserved into 6 decades of one life, meaning that the more broad of an indicator of life expectancy across the age range is anaerobic fitness, flexibility, or muscle strength, as we suspected. So make sure you're doing your yoga and loving yourself as much as you can, because nobody else is gonna. Okay, so that's the news this week. Right? That was all we had. Top stories. See if there's anything new that's popped up since then. Once a Florida governor candidate indicted. I'm not sure that matters. He was a Florida governor candidate. He didn't get elected. Good call, America. Final Fantasy 16 won't be open world. Oh no. Will be darker and more mature, says producer. Okay. Gotta check that one out. When Final Fantasy was first revealed, many fans immediately assumed it would follow the footsteps of its predecessor and be a large-scale open-world RPG, according to the producer. Instead, Yoshida, Final Fantasy 16 will focus on area-based design in a manner that sounds similar to Pokemon Legends, which was likewise assumed to be pure open-world game when it was first announced last year. But while Final Fantasy won't be a traditional open-world game itself, Yoshida does say that it will take a lot of inspiration for AAA open-world RPGs through he doesn't name any specifics. The 10 best open-world games, I don't know why it's continuing reading that, but it's interesting. SpaceX is going to say that 5G is going to deny Starlink. So basically, anywhere you can get 5G, you're not able to get Starlink. That's probably okay. Someone taught D&D to play, and it loves Magic Missile. Technology these days is amazing. Thanks to tech giant like Google, artificial intelligence is present in plenty of phones and plenty of homes. AI is able to perform tasks that require human levels of intelligence by learning patterns and predicting outcomes. So let's be honest, it was a matter of time before we tried to figure out how to get machines to play D&D. There have been plenty of attempts to make AI RPGs happen in the past. Perhaps most famously, you could play a game of Skyrim using your Amazon Alexa, but this is a scripted game that's more closely related to a choose-your-own-adventure book than a live TTRPG. There's also a work of computer science enthusiasts like Laura J. Martin who've been trying to teach AI to run D&D games since 2018. The most recent public attempt to unite AI and D&D came in a form of Reddit post June 19th. Jana Moklai, a 17-year-old software engineer from Finland, shared an impromptu D&D game with OpenAI's GP3 software, a language model or a chatbot that generates realistic sound responses to conversation. Now, tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons aren't the easiest things to replicate with machine learning. Firstly, it requires the software to convincingly replicate the mannerisms of humans. Then it must replicate a human who's pretending to be someone else. Combine that with the improvisation and storytelling skills needed for a game, and AI D&D suddenly sounds a lot more challenging. Macaulay wasn't deterred, however. To me, AI is one of the most exciting areas in computer science right now, he told Wagner, and it has a huge potential to shape the future of humankind in a number of ways, like helping humans to better understand and interact with the environment or helping to create more efficient and effective systems. Macaulay admits that being able to play D&D won't be a breakthrough that directly benefits society, but the project could prove some interesting results. I feel it was a good way of taking an AI on a test drive to see building a secondary level of reality between the AI and me, the role-playing world, and being able to write on and act on behalf of a character rather than its own AI persona, he says. That's pretty nuts to think that they're now writing an AI that can pretend to be someone else. So, like, if you write an AI that pretends to not be an AI, that's how you get artificial intelligence. I'm already scared. I don't know how well it did. The creativity challenge in question would have been quite cruel if tested on a human player. While looking for a quest in Waterdeep, the most famous D&D cities, Arclight the wizard meets a skeleton king who swiftly breaks Almrec's arm. No more spellcasting for Alrec. Good thing that this is a lesson in machine learning and how to be a DM. The AI's creative response to the situation is to attempt the reasons with the Skeleton King. Sadly, Alric the wizard rolls a 3 on his persuasion skill check, and the game ends. While short, the AI's ability to adapt to the game remains impressive. The sophistication of these currently existing AIs is unexpectedly high already. I can very quickly pull the data to its response that would take a while for the human to think of, or Google. Of course, every scientific test needs clarity, definition, clearly defined conditions. Mikula explains the settings for the test are some more detail, saying OpenAI is configurable with some parameters, and I did fine-tune those, let the AI roam a bit more free. In other words, it increased the temperature to increase the randomness of the AI's response. The maximum length to give me longer replies to some of my questions, and the frequency presence penalties in the hopes that AI would bring new topics into the discussion. Wow. This sounds like he's about to open a Pandora's box of all kinds of shit. Just saying. Okay, so I think that's going to conclude our portion of the news this week. What would we... I kind of feel like playing a little games afterwards. And the Surviving Mars sounds fun, since we were doing a whole bunch of space thing situation. Apparently I was installing something. Can't do that while I'm running. That's fair. I'm glad it's on the other side. Welcome to my desktop. You guys can see what my desktop is. Yay. Let's see if I have Mission to Mars downloaded. Let me give it a short intermission. I'll be back, you guys. Hold on. I'm gonna download it. It's gonna be a second or two. I should really probably stop drinking this Monster at literally 10 o'clock at night. And I thought it was gonna cool off, like the wind was going nice and pretty, and then all of a sudden it got hot again. And maybe, you know what, I'll just end it, really. Thanks for being here today, everybody. I'm not sure you guys want to see me play video games. If you do want to see me play video games, then I will stream it. But I would like somebody out there to respond or to say something along the lines they would like to watch me play video games, because I don't really think it's a thing. But it's going to take a little bit, and I should probably stop streaming, and maybe I'll stream it later. Either way, thanks for being here. I really appreciate everybody who shows up to my streams, even though it's fleeting, maybe. But thanks for the support.